The Art of Conscious Reality Creation. Introduction. The Power of Presence. True intelligence isn't measured by how quickly you respond, but by the depth of the silence that comes before it. We live in an era where reacting fast is seen as competence, yet wisdom rarely manifests through speed. It flourishes in the space between stimulus and action, exactly where the conscious mind comes into play. This awakened mind doesn't rush. It observes. It inhabits the now. The state of presence that spiritual teachers like Eckhart Tolle discuss isn't some abstract concept. It's a practical skill that fundamentally changes how we perceive and shape our world. Being present means releasing the automatic impulse to filter everything through past experiences or future anxieties. It means perceiving reality as it is, without the distortions created by memories, judgments, or conditioning. At the heart of this understanding lies a profound truth. The way you observe reality changes what it becomes. Quantum physics demonstrated this. With the famous double-slit experiment, particles behave differently when observed. The simple presence of the observer changes the outcome. Consciousness influences what manifests. Applied to daily life, this reveals something extraordinary. By changing the quality of your attention, you change the trajectory of your reality. A difficult situation can collapse into chaos or transform into learning, depending on the state of presence with which you meet it. Chapter 1, The Practice of Presence. Being present isn't the same as thinking about the present. It's exactly the opposite. Eckhart Tolle teaches that the now can only be accessed when we silence the continuous mental chatter. When we pause the internal narrative and simply exist in this silent space, a clarity emerges that no rational analysis can reach. The power of the conscious mind lies precisely here, in the ability to sustain attention without getting lost in thoughts. It's not an escape from reality, but a complete dive into it, with all senses alive and perception unobstructed. This practice translates into simple yet powerful actions. When facing a difficult conversation, instead of reacting impulsively, pause for a few moments and return your attention to your breath. Simply feeling the air move in and out, without interference, is enough to bring you back to center. In moments of emotional confusion, ask yourself an honest question. What I'm feeling, is this real, or is it just an automatic response pattern? If emotions remain unclear, writing down what's flowing through your mind helps untangle internal knots, revealing what lies behind the impulse. This is why great spiritual masters always return to the same point: cultivating presence, because wherever your attention rests, your reality is born. And this attention, however subtle it may seem, is a creative tool. Being present also means noticing life's nuances. You begin to perceive expressions, silences, and details that once went unnoticed. Intuitions arise more frequently, as if you've connected to a refined wisdom that exists not in books or others' opinions, but in the conscious silence that observes without hurry. The conscious mind, unlike the ordinary mind, doesn't seek to dominate everything. It opens itself to perceive. And in this opening, it transforms. Life stops being a series of random events and begins taking on the contours of purpose. Situations that seemed like obstacles reveal themselves as lessons perfectly positioned for your growth. Over time, this practice creates a new internal pattern. Instead of being dragged by automatic reactions, you begin choosing not from fear or haste, but from a stable state of presence. This doesn't just improve your decisions. It completely transforms your relationship with life. Present consciousness isn't interested in controlling everything, but in being fully here moment after moment. Ironically, it's in this state of non-control that the greatest transformative power emerges. When you're truly present, reality doesn't dominate you, it reveals itself. Chapter 2. Mastering Emotional Frequency. When exploring paths of self-knowledge and reality manifestation, we inevitably encounter a principle that, while subtle, is decisive: conscious emotional control. This isn't just a tool for balance. It's the foundation for those who truly want to master their own reality. Beyond the cliché of emotional control, what we're proposing here is something deeper: genuine energetic reprogramming. Imagine the mind as a lake. When strong emotions stir its waters, it becomes impossible to see the bottom. Similarly, when we're overtaken by anger, fear, or anxiety, our perception distorts, clarity fades, and decisions become impulsive reactions. In this state, we create the reality around us based on the internal chaos we carry. But when we position ourselves as conscious observers of our emotions rather than hostages to them. The lake calms, vision clears, and the world around us begins responding differently. Emotionally distancing yourself from events doesn't mean becoming cold or indifferent. On the contrary, it's about developing the ability to feel without being swept away. It's what Eastern masters call the inner witness and the presence that observes, understands, and consciously chooses the emotional response instead of reacting on impulse. Viktor Frankl, psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, wrote, "Between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. This space is where true power lives. In it we become capable of accessing an emotional frequency that resonates with what we wish to manifest." The secret of vibrational alignment. Here's the secret. Manifesting isn't about wanting something forcefully. It's about becoming compatible with that something. Emotion is the vibrational code that communicates to the universe what we are, not just what we want. It's no coincidence that those who study quantum shifting, changing, reality based on vibrational frequencies emphasize the importance of coherence between thought, feeling, and action. When these three elements are misaligned, reality also becomes fragmented. Jim Carrey, before achieving fame, wrote himself a check for $10 million and kept it in his wallet, not as a wish, but as a symbol of identity. It wasn't magic or self-deception, but a powerful practice of vibrational realignment. He decided to feel, think, and act as if that future were already present. This type of practice goes far beyond positive thinking, as it requires commitment to an elevated version of yourself. It's like wearing new vibrational clothes and keeping them on every day, even when the mirror insists on showing the old image. This is only possible when our emotions are under our leadership, not the other way around. The power of emotional neutrality. Being emotionally neutral isn't the same as being apathetic. It's actually the highest form of emotional mastery. When you're neutral, you're centered. And this center is the starting point of all great transformations. Consider those moments when you needed to make a difficult decision. If you were too emotionally involved, you probably made decisions based on fear or anger. But when you managed to distance yourself emotionally, the path revealed itself much more clearly. Are practical tools for emotional mastery. Daily meditation serves not just as relaxation, but as exercise in internal observation. During meditation, you learn to recognize thoughts and emotions without clinging to them. Over time, this translates into greater presence in daily life and less reactivity to challenges. Emotional journaling is another powerful practice. By recording your daily emotions and reactions, you begin identifying unconscious patterns. This allows you not only to understand them, but to reprogram them. Those who achieve this emotional neutrality also manage to approach their highest version. This has a direct impact on the reality they build. A person who cultivates inner peace naturally attracts more harmonious situations. This isn't mysticism, it's vibrational physics in action. We don't just emit words, we emit states and the universe responds to them. Chapter 3. Rewriting your internal narrative. In a universe where consciousness shapes matter, how we interpret the past determines the possibilities we can access in the present. Many of our memories aren't neutral records of what happened, but emotional interpretations often loaded with pain, frustration, or hurt. They become dramatic narratives, internal soap operas, that gradually shape who we believe we are. This narrative pattern not only distorts facts but creates persistent emotional filters. These filters act like glasses that alter our perception of the now and limit the types of experiences we can have. Simply put, if you see everything through the lens of disappointment, the world will inevitably seem disappointing. Worse, you begin energetically attracting the same experiences into your reality, creating repetitions of the past that only confirm the emotional narrative you've built. So the alternative, neutral revision, there's an alternative. By removing the dramatic veneer from memories and reassessing facts with greater neutrality, clarity begins to emerge. What was once interpreted as personal tragedy can be understood as a simple occurrence, difficult, yes, but neutral in its essence. An event that came and went, and doesn't need to continue being dragged along as an emotional anchor. This internal revision has an immediate effect. It reduces mental suffering and breaks repetitive cycles of pain. This emotional cleansing is, in a way, consciousness hygiene. When we stop feeding painful narratives, the mental field reorganizes itself. Space emerges for new interpretations, new emotional responses, and mainly new decisions, the mind becomes lighter and more effective, capable of responding with serenity, even in challenging situations. More practical exercise: memory rewriting. There's a simple practice that can initiate this change: mentally rewriting a significant memory, describing it without adjectives, without value judgments, just the facts. This exercise, though subtle, helps remove the emotional charge associated with the memory and allows it to transform into practical wisdom rather than a source of suffering. It's like taking emotion out of the narrative center and putting consciousness in its place. This emptying of internal narratives also transforms how we interpret the present. Instead of reacting based on old memories and undigested emotions, we begin responding based on what's actually happening. This makes us more strategic, more lucid, and less vulnerable to emotional traps. In interpersonal relationships, the impact is even deeper. By detaching ourselves from emotional filters inherited from past experiences, we become more receptive, more empathetic, and more emotionally available. Projections decrease, conflicts reduce, and bonds become more authentic. When you stop seeing others as extensions of old wounds, you begin seeing them for what they really are, not what you fear reliving. Chapter 4. Neurological Shielding and Environmental Mastery. Imagine entering a room full of tension, perhaps an office in crisis or a tense family meeting. Within seconds, without realizing it, your body has already reacted. Heart racing, breath shortening, expression changing. This automatic response is more common than you might think. Humans, by nature, are emotional mirrors of their environment. We unconsciously absorb others' emotional states, an evolutionary inheritance that served survival in primitive groups. But in modern life, this characteristic can be both a trap and a master key. Mastering this unconscious reflex isn't just possible, it's essential. When a person learns to interrupt this automatic absorption, they begin gaining emotional autonomy that transforms their presence and reality. The science of neurological shielding. Studies in neuroplasticity show we can reshape the brain's emotional circuits. By doing so, we not only react differently, but begin influencing the environment with our own internal frequency, instead of being shaped by it. This is where neurological shielding comes in. Simple but powerful. Techniques like controlling gaze, facial expression, and breathing that work as invisible shields. Gaze control. Train your focus on a fixed point, preventing it from dispersing with external chaos. Facial neutrality. Keep facial muscles neutral to prevent invasive emotions from taking over the body. Rhythmic breathing. Deep, controlled breathing informs the brain that everything is under control, even when the world seems chaotic. These practices don't just stabilize emotions, they alter the vibrational frequency we emit. And this is where the game changes. Unconscious control of synchronicity, modern quantum physics, along with Carl Jung's studies on synchronicity, helps us understand that the reality around us isn't as random as it seems. Jung said, "What we don't face within ourselves will meet us as destiny." In other words, the external world is a reflection of our internal state. This process of aligning our emotions with intention and maintaining a stable frequency is what we call conscious control of synchronicity. When this occurs, something fascinating happens. We begin noticing that certain encounters, opportunities, and even coincidences become more frequent. But they're not just luck, they're responses from the universal energy field to our vibrational emission. It's as if reality hears us and responds in echo. This phenomenon stops being mystical and becomes mechanical, a logical consequence of emitting clear and aligned signals. Our practical tools for energetic immunity. Maintaining this state requires practical tools. Heart coherence meditation synchronizes heartbeat with breathing rhythm, creating active peace, grounding techniques. Walking barefoot on earth, conscious breathing, anchoring visualizations, mirror work, observing your reflection, while maintaining a serene expression reprograms stress responses. By becoming emotionally impenetrable, a person acquires energetic immunity. They avoid manipulation by alarmist discourse, don't fall into cycles of collective anxiety, and maintain clarity even amid chaos. This creates silent leadership, influence not through force, but through consistency. Chapter 5. Quantum Questioning. Breaking the Matrix of Limiting Beliefs. Since childhood, we're trained to follow an invisible script. Grow up, study, get a good job, start a family, seek stability. All this seems so natural that we rarely stop to ask, are these ideas really mine? Do they reflect who I truly am, or just what I was taught to be? Most people live without ever challenging these premises. But there's a growing group that has begun seeing the cracks in the social structures supporting these beliefs. And when this deconstruction begins, there's no going back. A powerful perception emerges. Our beliefs actively shape the reality we experience. This isn't just philosophical. Quantum physics has proposed for decades that the observer influences the observed. How you see the world interferes with the possibilities it presents to you. The process of quantum questioning. This process goes beyond common doubt. It invites us to examine our most solid concepts: success, failure, normality, confidence, and ask, where did this come from? Does this still make sense to me? Is there another way to interpret this situation? With each belief questioned, a small collapse occurs in the old reality model. And in this collapse, a portal opens, an access point to new interpretations, decisions, and results that were previously invisible, simply because they weren't tuned to your mental frequency. Consider this. What if failure isn't the opposite of success, but part of the same path? What if confidence isn't about seeming secure all the time, but accepting vulnerability as a natural stage of growth? Just considering these ideas, you're already internally reorganizing the filters that determine how you see and live in the world. And practical applications. People who challenge limiting definitions of success begin allowing themselves to create more authentic projects, less focused on external validation, more connected to what truly resonates within them. They don't just feel freer. They are freer because they break from the invisible tracks limiting their choices. This movement doesn't require a drastic break with everything. It starts small, noticing that certain social rules no longer work for you and giving yourself the right to update them. It's like updating your mind's operating system to something more compatible with your current version. The liberation of mental energy. Each time you question an obsolete belief, you release mental energy that was stuck, wasted sustaining an idea that no longer serves. This energy becomes available to create, to manifest, to decide more authentically. It's like freeing up space on a hard drive full of old files. Suddenly, everything flows better. Creativity increases, intuition becomes clearer, and synchronicities happen more frequently. You literally change the reality you access. Those who practice quantum questioning notice something curious. Opportunities that seemed not to exist begin appearing. Not because they materialized from nothing, but because your perception was calibrated to see them. The world doesn't change, the way you see it changes. Chapter 6. The Architecture of Conscious Manifestation. There comes a moment for those walking the path of consciousness, when theory must give way to practice. After learning to stabilize emotions and understand the impact of beliefs on reality, the mind naturally awakens to a question. How do I integrate all this into a functional system applicable in daily life? This is the proposal of conscious manifestation in its most advanced form, an internal architecture, carefully built where emotion, thought, and action operate in harmony to shape realities with surgical precision. Here, nothing is random. Everything is intentional. We're the 8-stage system. Stage 1, metaconsciousness. Develop the ability to observe, without judgment, your own thoughts, emotions, and behavior patterns. Without this lucid observation, there's no real transformation, just automatic reactions disguised as choices. Stage 2, precise definition. Define exactly what reality you want to manifest. Nothing generic like I want to be happy or I want to prosper. The quantum mind responds to specific commands. What exact reality do you want? What version of yourself lives this reality? Stage 3, emotional alignment. Feel now the emotions you would experience if your desire were already real. Gratitude, enthusiasm, peace. These aren't just pleasant sensations, they're access frequencies. Without this emotional alignment, even the best mental plan remains stagnant. Stage 4, behavioral integration. Live from this new identity. Act as the version of yourself who already inhabits that reality. It's not about pretending, it's about incorporating. Stage 5, mental rehearsal. Visualize the desired situations in detail, mentally rehearsing the speech, attitude, posture. The brain doesn't distinguish well between lived reality and intensely visualized reality, So you're programming your neurological system to recognize opportunities and act with confidence. Stage 6, detached attachment. Trust that the universe can deliver something even more aligned than you imagined. Obsession creates resistance. Genuine desire emits frequency but respects manifestation timing. Stage 7, gratitude catalysis. Practice constant gratitude. Gratitude changes body chemistry, amplifies the heart's electromagnetic field, and tunes us to abundance frequencies. Being grateful before something happens is one of the most potent ways to demonstrate vibrational faith. Stage 8, sign recognition. Learn to read the universe's feedback. Small synchronicities, unexpected encounters, sudden intuitions. Nothing is by chance. These are confirmations from the quantum field that you're on track. Vadibrahma's integration and support systems. For this system to work, maintain the neurological shielding learned earlier. This protects your frequency during transitions, preventing external noise from lowering your internal vibration. Continue quantum questioning of beliefs. Even with the right system, unquestioned limiting beliefs can undermine everything. It's like trying to navigate with an invisible anchor stuck to the bottom. Complementary techniques include journaling for mental clarity, affirmations for energetic alignment, visualizations for neurological training, symbolic rituals for transitions, but none work if the intention isn't sincere, practice isn't consistent, and the heart isn't involved. Conscious manifestation isn't superficial. Mentalism, it's spiritual maturity. It requires the marriage between rational focus and emotional surrender, between structure and fluidity, between intention and intuition. To conclusion, becoming a conscious co-creator. In the end, it all comes down to a simple yet powerful principle. The greater your internal control, the greater your external influence. When you master your thoughts, emotions, and perception, the world around you responds precisely. This positive echo from reality reinforces your confidence, feeding back the entire process with even more clarity and power. This is the turning point, the moment we stop being victims of circumstances and assume the role of conscious creators of experience. No longer by chance, no longer by luck, but by choice, intention, and action aligned with what's truest in us. Every change begins with understanding your role as a co-creator. The only way to connect with this divine intelligence is through the practices outlined here. Presence, emotional mastery, narrative revision, energetic shielding, belief questioning, and conscious manifestation. When we silence external noise and dive into our center, we access deeper levels of perception and alignment. It's in this space that conscious manifestation strengthens, and we discover that we are not separate from the creative force of the universe. We are expressions of it. The invitation is clear. Step into your power as a conscious creator. The tools are here. The path is mapped. The only question remaining is, are you ready to create the reality you truly desire? This isn't a path of theory, but of practice. Every moment you decide to be conscious, even in routine situations, you're training your mind to align with something greater. You're leaving autopilot and entering mastery of your own destiny.